fees for?
To my knowledge, I'm not aware of him charging someone to use the facility. I am aware of a couple of instances where people were in the facility that he knew about, and this was before we came back in and took over the facility. But I'm not aware if there was a charge that took place.
Okay.
As far as like him renting the space again, I'm not aware of that.
So would it be reasonable to think that he should pay a use fee since he's a long-term user of that?
I think it's very reasonable from us, as far as, again, city staff, that he should be charged some type of rental fee, monthly rental fee to be in the facility. Now, whether it's the $700 I put up there, $500, $400, that's, again, something that I'm coming to you all to see, how you all feel about that. Because, again, for us, we have these costs regardless. I mean,
Right, sure.
regardless if he's in the gym 5 days a week, or if he's in the gym 7 days a week, there's still that electric bill cost that's going on, and neither he nor the church are paying anything. So
Right.
we're absorbing all that cost, and at least,
Correct.
whatever revenue is brought in can help offset those costs.
And just for the sake of discussion here and clarity, I have the minutes for January and February, which this subject was discussed. And a board was appointed, or formed, if you will, that would basically manage and set rules and regulations, et cetera, and for that. That board fell apart, and I'm not going to go into detail, but it just fell apart and no longer exists. And that's why we, the council, took it back and give it to Parks and Recreation. And y'all have done a good job of managing it. But I think it's time that we, as a council, make a firm decision about the use of this. We've put in excess of $200,000 in this. And to go back to the 2016 discussions, when the residents and former users of the old W.A. Foster building met with the council, and we met 3 times. And they were very adamant about the fact that they could bring in a for-profit organization that would pay the upkeep of it, basically. And there were 3 proposals submitted to us. And none of those 3 organizations could sustain the operating cost. And that's when we went to Plan B, so to speak. So we're at a point now where I think that we need to look at this as something that we need to establish some firm operating procedures. If there are charges involved in it, which I think there should be for certain organizations, then we need to establish what those charges are, and then we go forward from there. So I hope the council will join me in that discussion.
One thing I did look at is, especially long-term rental, maybe $700 a month is a little steep for the Ashford box. But we're also very, I think, for nonprofits, they're the ones we want to help.
Right.
Excuse me. But these rates, I could see for Ashford going down to make it reasonable for him because of the good he's doing. And maybe the gymnasium, look at that for long-term rental. But we got to have something to keep heat, light, and water on that. No, we don't want to make a profit. We just want to.
Well, even nonprofits sometimes pay, depending on what they're renting.
Yeah, but that's part of their programming.
Yeah.
In their programming. So, I'll throw some number outside, like especially the jib at $700 a month. Maybe $450, $500 a month. Looking at the revenue that he's bringing in, I could see a reduction there.
Go back to your slide, excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem. Go back to the slide on the cost of operation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
there, yes. So you got $6,000 worth of utility overhead right there, if nobody uses it.
And that's for the entire building, not just the gym, that's the entire building.
And the original plans were to demolish the old W.A. Foster. That was, as soon as the new W.A. Foster was up and running, we were going to demolish the old and make a park in that area. And, but a lot of people said they wanted to do a lot of things, and we had a lot of people testifying in front of us, but none of that has generated. So I think we've got to get something. I'm not saying we even need to make a profit, but we need to get something to offset some of those costs. That's just my feeling.
Well, I think that nonprofit stipulation knocked out a lot of people when you have to have that. My question is, if we were to approve this proposal here, with Ashford already being in there and that church, let's say Jane Doe's organization wanted to be a long-term renter for the gym, do they have an opportunity, or are they automatically, kind of knocked out because he's already in there? And let's just say I wanted to rent the gym for a couple of hours, on a weekend, and all his equipment is in there. So how do those kind of things work?
So if you all were to approve these rates as they are now, then we will, of course, go back to the current tenants that are in there and let them know that, this is what council has decided, and effective this date, this is what the cost is going to be. And so with that, then they obviously will have the choice to make of, do they want to stay and pay that or move out? Now, with that said, with them being long-term renters, that means they're the only ones that can be in that facility, because that's why they're paying that, I don't want to say extra money, but why they're paying more money, because only they have the right or authority to be in that space. So with Ashford Boxing, only he can be in that gym space. It wouldn't be where Parks Recreation will rent it out for a birthday party on a Saturday, because he is a long-term renter. And like I said, that's different than our normal model of how we do things with Parks Recreation, because typically we operate recreation centers and we have multiple things going on. But in this instance, it would be different, because they will essentially be a tenant in the facility, not,
So they have exclusive use of it.
Right.
So
Okay, section.
if I was to see this as, looking at the TC Coley building to rent, and I see the gymnasium here, I'm unaware, let's just say that Ashford Boxing is in there. So now I'm going in thinking one thing, that I can actually rent it, but I really can't. So we would need to make some type
Oh, yeah, no, we would take it off. Like I
Okay.
said, what this is here is, this is a proposal that I have brought back in February, and I was just showing it again to you all tonight to say, these are the proposed rates we have. So again, with that scenario, Ashford Boxing, they want to be in there, then there is no possibility. You won't see the gym listed as something you can rent. Right.
And they were paying rent at Herman Park Center as well.
They were, it was
They-
very low rent in a much smaller space, but.
But they were paying rent. So it's a great program.
The question I have, in the initial talks, because before it was changed, it was W.A. Boston, which was a charter member of our lodge, so we had a vested interest in how it would go. So who initially allowed the church? I mean, who made that determination as to that church? Because I know every pastor in Goldsboro would know that they could have a free space, collect tithes. I mean, if there's no money being paid to Parks and Recs, I mean, where's that money going? Like I said, there has to be some operational responsibility on these tenants. I mean, because money's just going nowhere. I mean, we're losing. I mean, I know it's a great program, but I mean, how did that church that's using that space, how did they get that space? I'm guessing my question. Over all the thousands of churches in Goldsboro.
For that, I will actually have to lean back on the city manager's office and you all as city council, because again, they were already in there when city council directed us to take it over. So I'm not sure if that was part of the nonprofit board, or Octavius, can you speak on that? I thought I saw you raise your hand. Did you raise your hand? I'm sorry. I thought I saw a hand behind it, that's all. Maybe it was Jennifer flipping her hair.
We never,
I was a part of that process when the church approached the city manager's office. It was approved by, at the time, the city manager and the mayor. know if the council had any input on it. But from that, the board was developed because they wanted to entertain all nonprofit organizations being able to have the same accessibility as the church as well as the Steve Ashford Boxing Organization.
So it seems like we have two, like, owners that aren't paying rent, that can prevent other people that may want to pay rent. Like you said, you turn money down. So I think the only sensible, logical response to this is to go to your proposal. I mean, because the city is investing money and they're not receiving any, so.
And we've got to invest additional money
Exactly. For
in that thing, especially for high vac.
HVAC system and all that.
And the bathrooms, where we, excuse me, where we are with the bathrooms there, they didn't get renovated. And
Correct.
they need to get
Correct.
renovated.
The bathrooms at what's now considered TC Coley Community Center did not get renovated. We have bathrooms, what I call in the back of the building, closer to the back meeting room with the mirrors. We have bathrooms there, and then we have bathrooms when you first walk into the building off the lobby area. The bathrooms when you first walk into the building, they are, of course, the older bathrooms. You can, particularly for the women's side, you can walk in and immediately tell they were probably built like in the 50s just because of how narrow the stalls are. And I know that that was, if I remember correctly, one of the things that council had entertained as far as, getting renovated. But again, we have not done any type of renovation since we had control of the facility again as far as Parks and Recreation. The maintenance we've done is when lights have gone out, we've replaced bulbs. When there was an issue with the outside lighting, we went there and realized that the timer had to be reset properly. Again, your basic maintenance, that's what we've done because there wasn't any money in our budget to do these renovations. So moving forward, if that's something that council would like for us to do, that's something that we can, of course, put in our budget with our other budget item requests.
What I'd like to see, I don't like someone having control over a city property. We have storms all the time, and we run into problems where we don't have people when it comes to people going into county shelters. We don't have any city shelters available or any place to put them. So I would like that to be an option.
I agree.
So when there is a storm, we don't have to depend on the county. We can house some of our own people. So I don't want people to be locked into basically saying who can come in and who can't come in. Excuse me. So if we can add that in there some type of way where.
Well, I know
uses.
with all of our facilities, I mean, ultimately, we, the city staff, the city have a say on who can and cannot use the facility. I'll give an example, particularly several years ago when Hurricane Matthew hit, and because of the severity of it, there was quite a bit of flooding, and Carver Heights Elementary School was used as a shelter, where for those of us that know, Carver Heights is an elementary school, so they don't have the locker room showers, and the toilets are built for little kids, not adults. As it just so happened, W.A. Foster Center, our new W.A. Foster Center had been open maybe 5 months, literally beside Carver Heights Elementary School. And so we opened up our facility as a day shelter where people could come in and take showers, play basketball, make use of the game rooms just to get their mind off what they were going through.
But my concern is, when we use the schools, like Tommy's Road, for instance, was used as a shelter too. And when the kids had to go back to school, the people had nowhere to go. So if we have a location like TC Coley, where it's not a school, then the people will have a little bit more time to get themselves together, opposed to, hey, good luck, you're on your own. So I would like, try to get the bathrooms together there. I don't know if there's any showers. I didn't see any showers.
No, there's showers when you first walk in to TC Coley, the older bathrooms on the left-hand side, you'll have the stalls and then showers, and the showers do work. Maybe not all of them, but some of the showers do work.
And we can do that if we have some revenue. So,
Felicia, I have another question, please. What's our policy, if there is such, on liability insurance of renters or users?
Well, For us, the way our policy is with liability insurance is if someone is coming in to hold an event where they are inviting other members of the public to come in to make use of the city facility, we require that they have liability insurance. Now, that said, that's different than if I want to throw a birthday party for a 5-year-old.
Right.
Throwing a birthday party for a 5-year-old is different when you compare it to, okay, I want to bring an up-and-coming comic out to do a comedy act, in the recreation room at W.A. Foster or T.C. Coley Community Center, and I want to charge $20 admission. So those are different scenarios. So it all depends on the situation when we require that liability
And
insurance.
current 2 permanent or semi-permanent users, have they ever produced a liability certificate?
Ashford Boxing did produce liability insurance. I'm not sure if the church did. I don't think the church did. The church did give us their nonprofit status. And I know, again, going back to council's discussion last year, beginning of last year, there was a discussion as far as the city looking at our liability insurance, making sure we can, cover what's going on there. So I think it was looked at as a church meeting is a little bit different than actual boxing, but Ashford Boxing did produce COI to us.
Yeah. So is this something we need to look into, making sure that, number one, is it required, number two, that they produced a certificate of liability?
Well, I think for them, it would just be them giving us an updated one, because most
Yeah,
time
right,
with
yeah,
a
sure.
COI, it's usually for like a year's time frame anyway.
Yeah.
And again, for us, as far as Parks Recreation, our general practice is, because again, for us, we'll consider it a special event. So whenever we do special events or someone comes to us and wants to do a special event, that's one of the things that they have to supply to us. So if the American Cancer Society wants to do a fun walk in Herman Park, they give us a COI because again, they're an organization
Sure.
coming into city property, inviting other people in, and it's not our
So
function.
so maybe we need to have a written document that specifies what level or what form of activity requires a certificate of insurance and which one does not.
Right.
A family birthday party may not, but something of a larger scale would require that.
Is the council feeling better about reducing some of the long-term rentals, especially the gymnasium?
I don't have a problem with reducing the
Okay.
gymnasium.
That-
I don't have a problem with reducing.
I mean, that's a little, he's doing a wonderful job at the Ashford, I think. And we may not want to hit him quite for 700, but maybe 450 or 300. That's,
300's too low.
what,
300's too low because once you get 300, then you rule out any more gym rentals.
right. So, do I have a recommendation for something?
I would say 500.
500? That 500 okay with council? Okay. There.
Okay.
And then we'll worry about the nonprofits.
So is there a contract? I apologize. Is there a contract that he currently has?
No.
No contract.
There's no
I'm looking at you all, like I said, because again,
There's no
when we took it
contract,
over,
there's
they
no
were
money.
already in there.
Yeah, there is no
and-
contract.
And our directive was.
The
to move
contract-
forward with letting other nonprofits use it.
This contract was bandied about, and it was with Mr. Strickland, the attorney, and blah, 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 and it never
Nothing
came.
happened.
Nothing happened.
So,
So
we
there
need
is
a
no
contract.
Strickland said that we wouldn't have anything to worry about for the money.
Yep.
He could provide.
We didn't have anything to worry about because we didn't get any money.
That's right.
Well, I'd like
Yeah.
to see a contract, that we could all overview, look at and see if, it's something that we agree with. Some stipulations as far as if there's an emergency, that they know that we need to use it as an emergency shelter for our citizens. That could be stipulated.
All right, and then one more question for you all as well. So with the church that's currently in there, as I said, they're using that back meeting room, the one with the mirrors. One of my proposed rates was for them to be charged $300 a month. Are you all okay with that, or did you want to lower that?
How big
many
is the
days a week are you
space?
using
They're using it one day a week.
I think they'd be better off paying the $30 for 2 hours.
I don't have any problem
If
with
they go
that.
3 hours, then they pay 45.
Yeah.
And then again, that's such a popular room. I mean, I grew up in that center. That's a popular room.
Oh, I
And
got
if-
some pictures of y'all gonna pass around.
Oh, my goodness. And if we lock them into that, that means that room is.
Right. But again, I think with the church, and this is me making a speculation, because they are just in there on Sundays and it's just chairs, I think they'll be fine just paying the time on Sunday and let us
Yeah,
open it up for
probably.
the people to use it.
That's pretty reasonable since they're not paying heat, light, and water or anything else.
I wish my church could just pay for 2 hours a week.
Any other questions?
Well, I would just propose, Mayor Pro Tem, that Felicia talk to the 2 tenants that are there now, or 2 users, tell them what's going on. I think we need to set a timeline that we produce. You come back to us in 2 weeks, let us know what their response is. We prepare a contract. Maybe we could have even a draft contract prepared in the meantime that she could take to them. And then come back to us in 2 weeks and let us know what their response is.
Okay.
I'm not so hung up on the dollars and cents, quite frankly, as I am the fact that this has been a very poorly run operation now for 15 months. And we need to get a hold of it and make it something formal. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Let's move on to the next item. Our next item is council committees discussion. And everybody has council committees in front of you. And I'll just go down to council committees and then we can talk about it. I have talked to a few people. I was unable to talk to 2 of us. But with your permission, I'll just go through as we go down on council committees. DGDC is David Ham. They've requested Mr. Ham for 1 more year there. Hillsborough Park is, I've done it, I will freely admit to everybody, I have never been to a Waynesboro Park meeting. I don't even know they have meetings. We'll see. If something comes up, I'll stay with that unless somebody wants to have that and not go to a meeting. That's Housing Authority, Mayor Allen specifically requested that he stay with Housing Authority. I think he's got several things going on in that area.
Well, who's going to be there in the meantime? I mean, because
It's a
housing,
general statute, it's a general statute that the mayor.
The mayor
is a part
has
of
to
that.
be there by statute.
the mayor,
Well, Mayor Pro Tem goes in his absence.
the mayor actually appoints to that board, but he doesn't sit on that board.
He's ex officio.
He cannot be an ex officio on a housing authority board.
I believe the general.
No, he cannot.
I'll have to pull the general statute.
He cannot. He can only appoint.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Yes, ma'am. It's okay.
Let's check that, then. We'll check that one and hold it in abeyance. Transportation Advisory Committee, well, Mayor Chuck Allen, he's been on this, he's on 70 Corridor Commission. He is asked to remain on that board. We have Mr. Aycock, you have been on that board for a number of years, and you've got a lot of background on it. And as an alternate, Councilman Ham, and that's the TAC board. The GWTA board is Ms. Simpson, Mr. Salmon, and it's vacant. Does anyone like to be on the GWTA
I
board?
would like to be back on that board.
I don't think you want to be on that board since you've been asked to be removed.
There was no reason for me to be removed.
Well,
And we have proven that, sir.
well,
But I'm not going to get into it. If you have a problem, we'll see what the rest of the council.
we'll see what the council, we have to see what the council says. I don't have any problem with you being on the board,
Yeah, well, I've
but
done
you know
great
the whole
things.
story.
I've done great things on that board. We shouldn't have a city employee on that board or someone that doesn't represent the community. Right now, we have the city manager on the board and we have an employee on that board. However, we have 2 commissioners from the county that sit on that board. So their constituents get an opportunity to have a voice there at the table. We do not. So if they don't want me on that board, then maybe one of my colleagues here won't mind getting on that board. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, I was certainly thinking about Ms. Matthews on that board because you have a lot, either Ms. Matthews on that board for this time or Mr. Pollock, either one. Both of you have a lot of stops on the GWTA in your areas.
I have a question, or a question comment. So we have Councilmember Ham, who has requested to stay on the DGDC board, which is a board that I was actually interested in. So my concern is that if we are just gonna be in our own respected areas, it doesn't seem fair to me. You have 2 new council members, and then what if someone else wanted to sit on that board? I think we all should move around a little bit and get our feet wet in different areas.
And this is a year-to-year appointment, too. So we're appointed year-to-year on that. And my understanding, when I talked to the new president of the DGDC, since they're almost being a transition from what they were to what they're going to be, that they'd like to have Councilman Ham one more year on that board. And that's, again, we can vote on that, just as easy as we can. Let's go down to the ex officio members. Now, ex officios, Parks and Rec, I talked to Councilman Pollock, you wanted to be on Parks and Rec because a number of people have contacted you.
Yes, sir. Not only that, when I was in high school, I was a liaison in high school for Parks and Rec as a child
Okay.
Parks and Rec advisor, so.
Okay. Historic District, Councilman Williams, you're good on that board. The Travel and Tourism, this is the mayor again because of the county and our city. And Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. That's another committee, and we're going to be talking about that later, right, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, sir.
We'll talk about that later. This is a board that currently has 30 members. We're going to ask to cut it down to 15, but it's not a board that you meets very often. The next item,
Well, they do meet every month. They just haven't been able to have a quorum because they can't get a majority of the 30 members. So they've asked to be reduced to 15 to be able to have an easier quorum. They still need a council member they would like to have a council member attend.
I know they have a parade. I've been in that parade. They do a number of really good things for people. If someone would be interested in that.
I would do that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I used to sit on that board.
When we had Councilman Stevens, he was really active on that board and became. The next are special committees. And Law and Finance, I think that, I can't remember who was on, was Councilman
Foster was on it.
Councilman Foster was on that.
I was on it during my first term, in the whole 4 years, we met one time.
Well, that's right. Only if we have a problem do we meet. Would someone like to be on that board?
You can put me up here.
Would you do that?
Yes.
Okay. Intergovernment Committee, Mayor Allen, and I'm on that board, and that's because we do an awful lot of work with Seymour Johnson and Friends of Seymour. So I'd like to stay on that board if possible, and Mayor Allen has indicated that he would like to. The next board is Military Liaison, and that's kind of the same thing with Mayor Allen, myself, David, Mr. Ham, and Solomon, because of the Military Affairs Committee and the ADC meetings, the Association of Defense Contractors meeting. And it's just that over the years, I know I've done it 8 years, is we know the people in Washington, we know the people in the state, and I'd like to continue on that board. And the next one is Herman Park Center, and this is going to be a hard-working board, and we may need more than 3 people. And that's Mr. Williams, Mr. Ham, Mr. Aycock. And this is as we go into building the new Herman Park Center. Do I have some volunteers for that?
I'd like to be a part of that since it's affiliated with
Okay,
Parks and Rec.
okay.
I have a question about this. I know we're going to talk about current projects really quickly, but the TC Coley building was a part of that special project, and since that's been completed, that group kind of was dismantled. Councilmember Ham talked about a board that was there. Is this kind of what that is? You mentioned a board that didn't really...
We had 3 other boards, and let me try to find those. There were some boards. I'll give you an example. We had a board set up, and we just more or less did away with them, was the police evidence room, police building and evidence room. Well, that's built. That's over. What was the other one?
She
Can I-
mentioned TC Coley.
The board,
The TC Coley board. It never happened.
well, it was formed, and they stayed in official status for a few months, but there were issues with lack of interest, people quitting and so forth, but their intended purpose there was that they would set policy and procedures and oversight of the TC Coley building. But as I said earlier, people began to lose interest or quit from the board, and so at some point it was disbanded and given back to Parks and Recreation. But that was separate and apart from what we're talking about here. No members of this organization or the council served on that board. They were independent.
We established that board with TC Coley, and then nothing happened. None of the nonprofits showed up, nobody. Any other questions with this?
When we have the discussions pertaining to Ms. Matthews, her concern with giving an opportunity to be on the DCDG board, and my concern with the transportation board, we don't know who we're going to put there. So
Okay.
are we going to have a vote pertaining to the DCDG?
Okay. I thought we had one on transportation board.
Well, on the DCDG, I know David Ham wanted to be,
Yes.
and Ms. Matthews, so I make a motion that we get a fresh set of eyes on Ms. Matthews. Your second?
We have a
Now, you
motion.
said it's a year to year, right?
It's
Each
a
position.
year to year, and the only reason I was saying, is we're in discussion now, is that while the DGDC will be in some form of transition, my recommendation is we keep Mr. Ham and Ms. Matthews is welcome to attend those meetings anytime.
Can we put another member on the board?
I don't see why we could not put another member.
Well, let's just add Ms. Matthews to
Add
it.
her to it.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
I mean, that's being inclusive.
I believe, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, there's one position that you guys have kind of, or not you guys, but downtown has.
And DGDC board membership is actually determined by the board, sorry. So I'd really rather defer to the board for that decision.
Can we just postpone that?
We'll postpone that and let the board, let their board make a decision.
So, wait. So,
Well,
we have the DCDG that has a profit side and a nonprofit side. And you mean to tell me that they're going to tell a council member who they want to be up there, and we have to accept
on
that?
their nonprofit side, they can.
So,
They can.
we do a lot for their nonprofit side.
But their profit side, The nonprofit side, they have the authority.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
We
understand.
do a lot for the nonprofit side.
I have a problem with it also.
So, well, we've got a
Well, we're
motion.
going to take the question back, right, to the DGDC as to whether we could add an additional member. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'd like to see.
Okay. Do I have a motion to take that one back on DGDC?
We have one on the floor right
I
now.
have a motion on the floor.
We had a second.
Just need to withdraw it. To rescind that motion. Just needs to be withdrawn if somebody wants to.
Would someone withdraw that motion?
I withdraw the motion to have Ms. Matthews have the opportunity to be a DCDG board member.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. And this will come back. This will come back at the next one.
Okay, so now we have the Transportation Authority discussion. Which council member, either Mr. Pollock or Ms. Matthews, would prefer to be on that board?
I actually think, Councilman Williams, you should be on that board. Again, if there was no findings as to why you was removed and you have a desire to sit on that board, I don't see why it should be a problem.
Well, you know, the board itself had the problem. It wasn't, I think you're trying to put two separate things there. You know, the board was the one who requested. The board members were the ones that were there. And, you know, they sent us a letter asking that he be removed. And, you know, they had to have a reason. You know, you say there's no reason, they had to have a reason.
What was the reason? Was it in the letter?
It was what?
In the letter?
No.
Well, I want to just clarify that it wasn't the board as a unit that sent the letter. It was one board member who didn't get the approval from the rest of the board. So it was never legal, the letter that was received here.
Well, I can tell you, I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if you go back on the board or not. What bothers me is, you know, how will you be received on the board? That's the problem I'm facing. I think you understand what I'm saying, too.
Well,
Now, we're talking about Transportation Advisory Board. We're not
GWTA.
talking about
We're
GWTA.
talking about GWTA.
So, the transportation, we have Mayor Allen, and then, David, you're just an alternate,
It's
so
non-voting.
it's a non-voting. The alternate in transportation is a non-voting position. Yes, ma'am.
He can vote in the absence of, if we need a quorum, he can vote if
Oh.
we have, if our two members, both
Okay.
members are not present.
Okay.
but we were discussing the GWTA.
But we started out with that.
So I don't, you know, we're starting off a new year, so I'm not gonna fight with this council because I want to work with that board, which I've done an excellent job on that board, but any of these council members, I'll be glad to have them there because we need someone from the council to be on that board. We don't just need an employee or a city manager to be on that board because that takes away us working for the community. They make a decision without us being here. Excuse me. So
And that's exactly why Ms. Matthews or Mr. Pollock, either one, because you have the highest concentration of shelters.
However, it's early in the morning. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if that is adequate for you guys.
Well, I just want to make this statement. I mean, no findings, nothing was substantiated from what took place, from what I see. And I just look at Councilman Williams as a blueprint for myself in the future. And I want to safeguard any allegations in the future. With nothing being found, you know, how do I protect myself if any event, something happened like what happened with him? And just to be removed from something that somebody's passionate about, which, you know, is evident that there's a passion for that position. I just want to make sure that in the event either one of us get on that board, or any board for that matter, how are you protected if in the event something were to happen similar to what happened with Councilman Williams? And I just want some type of clarity, what protects us as council members with due process of, I mean, anything preventing us from following. I mean, I would love to be on it myself, but I don't want the same, a similar situation. And I'm not a fortune teller, but who knows, you know, so what, I guess what checks and balances are put in place, to
I
protect
think,
council?
in addition to that, though, Councilmember Acott mentioned about how he would be received. To me, it seems personal to begin with. And maybe that individual needs to be removed if they can't leave issues at the door, because that's what we're supposed to do. We have a common goal there, and we don't have time for personal issues with one another that would
I don't know.
hinder us.
Is Freeman still on the board?
Yeah. I just
I
think
don't
for
have a problem with it,
one
you know.
year,
I don't care. I just want the best person to be on there. And if
I think he
Antonio
is the
thinks he's
best
the best person, then, you know, I have no problems putting him back on there.
well, somebody make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the motion is that Councilman Pollitt or
Councilman Williams.
that Councilman Williams be reinstated on the GWTA board. Do I have a second?
Second.
I already
Okay.
seconded.
Oh, she already said.
Discussion. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, that's it. Works out. Okay. I think that's everything on that deal. New business, council retreats, dates and topics.
Yes, sir. So on my weekly update to council members, I mentioned that the council retreat will be reserved the Goldsboro Event Center on February 26th to 27th, that we could cover topics such as the city vision, mission, goals, and values, our strategic plan, council ethics training, Robert's Rules of Order, economic development, financial audit, budget update, personnel policy, water rate study, and updates on various projects. And so I'd like council to let me know by the next meeting, if possible, if they have any additional topics they'd like to include, and if that venue and date is good for everyone.
I'd like to add summer employment for our youth, summer youth employment. And also I'd like to add our rail trail program that I suggested for Center Street on the north end side of town.
The what program, sir?
It's rail and trails. I presented it last, our last retreat, and it was pathways and bicycle trails, you know, in that part of town. Thank you.
Any other? Any other? Okay. Let's go right now. That takes care of old business. That takes care of new business. Consent agenda items. Yeah, we approved the minutes. They went ahead and approved it.
I want to move something from the consent agenda. Do I do that now?
You request it. You request it. Yes, ma'am.
Council. Item B in the consent agenda is CU 1419 Zachel Perry. The property is located on the southwest corner of East Oak Street and North John Street intersection. The applicant's requesting a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a used car lot within the general business district. The sale of used vehicles is permitted within the GB zoning district after the issuance of a conditional use permit approved by City Council. The property was previously operated as a used car lot. Since the business has been closed for more than 6 months, the applicant's required to reapply. The submitted site plan indicates an existing roughly 1,000 square foot building proposed for use as a sales office. The remainder of the property is mostly paved and is proposed for the employee and customer parking, as well as a display of automobiles for sale. The applicant states there will be no outdoor storage on the site. Hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday with 2 employees. The applicant's proposing up to 7 display vehicle spaces and the site plan indicates both customer and employee parking. A type A 10-foot wide landscape buffer is required along the southern property line, and existing vegetation fulfills this requirement. And a type C 20-foot wide buffer, landscape buffer is required adjacent to the residentially developed property to the west. An existing chain link fence with privacy slats is located between the subject property and the existing single-family dwelling. Due to the limited space, the applicant is asking for a modification of the city's landscape requirement adjacent to the residentially developed property. The applicant is requesting the following modifications of the city's landscape ordinance: street trees along North John and East Oak Streets, vehicular surface area landscaping, and the landscaping required for the type C 20-foot wide landscape buffer. At the public hearing held on December the 16th, 2019, no one appeared to speak for or against this request, and the Planning Commission at their meeting held on December the 16th recommended approval of the conditional use permit to allow the operation of a used car lot with the recommended modifications. It is recommended my motion accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and adopt an order approving the conditional use permit to allow the operation of a used car lot and approve the conditional use permit with the requested modifications.
What is the modification to street trees? What modification? Take them down, plant them, what?
Not install,
Okay.
not install. There are no
Yeah, right,
trees there
yeah, but-
now and not to install.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The only thing is the trees at the back of the place, right?
Yep,
There's
there's
a house
existing,
back.
there's existing
There's a
on the
house
west
not that far from the fence.
to the rear, as you can see there,
Thing's
adjacent to
been a car
the,
lot 15 times, so any questions? Any questions from the council? Okay. Ms. Jennifer, farm lease agreements.
Item C is farm lease agreements. The city of Goldsboro or the city and county of Wayne jointly own several tracts of land which have been leased in the past for farming purposes. Prior to 2013, 7 properties have been under lease for farming through one-year leases approved by City Council during December of each year. In November of 2013, the City Council contracted farm leases for these 7 properties for a period of 3 years. The term extension was due to the investment farmers were making in the land regarding nitrogen, lime, etc. in the preparation for growing crops. Of the 7 properties, 1 tract is for the sole purpose of livestock due to the topsoil being stripped and not feasible for growing crops. The current farm leases expired December 31st of 2019. Staff advertised an invitation to bid on the city's website beginning November the 12th of 2019 with bid submittals due December the 2nd of 2019. 3 farmers, all current lessees, submitted bids on 1, some, or all of the farm tracts. Staff properly notified the public of the city's intent to lease the property for crop and livestock use per General Statutes 160A 272 for the 7 properties. And I'll go through each one of these. On the screen, you'll have a map, which they're also in your agenda packets. And I'll just like to indicate this is the first tract. It's 2 tracts on the west side of NC 111 South. It's 56.3 acres. And Mr. Alfred Parks submitted a bid for $136.50 an acre, which is a total yearly lease of $7,684.95. The second tract is west side of NC 111 South. This is 24.2 acres. Mr. Alfred Parks indicated a bid of $136.50 per acre, which is $3,303.30 for a yearly lease. The first 2 tracts that I've just spoke of are jointly owned with the county. This third tract is the west side of Miller Chapels Road, which is 5.1 acres. Originally, Jonathan Gray, we had several farmers bid on several of the tracts, as I previously mentioned. Mr. Jonathan Gray previously bid on this with the highest bid of $86.70 an acre. Because he did not receive the prior 2 tracts, he didn't come in as the highest bidder. He withdrew his bid because these are all in a similar location. It wasn't worth his time. And Mr. Alfred was awarded the bid at $80 per acre, which is $408 of a yearly lease. And again, this tract is just city only. It is not jointly owned with the county. The next tract is the northeast and southeast corners of Arrington Bridge Road and Pecan Road. This is 43.4 acres. And Mr. Jonathan Gray submitted the highest bid of $97.70 per acre. He is also the current leasee, or as of December the 31st, and that's a $4,240.18 total yearly lease.
Do you know if that land's in the flood zone?
Yes.
Yes, these are
Crown-
all-
Most of it's flood zone.
Yes, sir.
And some of it's Clean Water Act, especially there around Miller's Chapel because of encroachment.
This next one is the northeast corner of Arrington Bridge Road and South John Street. This is 47.59 acres, again, city-owned only. The current leasee, which was Jonathan Gray, submitted the highest bid of $97.70 per acre with a $4,649.54 yearly lease. This tract is the northeast corner of Genoa Road and Pecan Road, 25.1 acres. And the current leasee, Alfred Parks, submitted the highest bid of $73.50 an acre, and that's $1,844.85 a yearly lease. And the last tract is the livestock-only tract, which was previously where the topsoil was stripped, therefore just leasing for livestock only. This is located on the northwest side of Pecan Road between Genoa and Mitchell Road, and Mr. Cameron Mitchell submitted the highest bid of $60 per acre, and that's $774 a yearly lease. The lease term for all the farm tracts, excluding the livestock-only tract, is for a period of 3 years. The lease term for the livestock-only tract is for a period of 8 years, and lease payments must be made prior to January the 31st of 2020. All farm tracts, with the exception of the farm located on the northeast corner of Arrington Bridge Road and South John Street, are jointly owned with the County of Wayne, and the yearly proceeds are equally shared. For jointly owned properties, lease agreements have been afforded to the Wayne County Board of Commissioners for action at their next meeting if approved by City Council. So if you approve tonight, it is on their agenda for tomorrow morning. If you do not approve, then obviously I will work with the county clerk to make sure that is removed from their agenda. It is recommended by motion to authorize the preparation and execution of farm lease agreements between the City of Goldsboro, the County of Wayne, and Jonathan Gray for 3 years. The City of Goldsboro and Jonathan Gray for 3 years. The City of Goldsboro, the County of Wayne, and Alfred Parks for 3 years. And the City of Goldsboro, the County of Wayne, and Cameron Mitchell for 8 years.
Any questions?
Am I correct that the current bid amounts are less than the current leased amounts?
That is correct. By about $20. But it may be, and I don't have an answer for that. It just, when we bid this 3 years ago, we had a minimum bid of $55 per acre. This year, we had a minimum bid of $75 per acre for crops. And I want to say it was $60 for livestock. Those recommendations come from Kevin Johnson at the Ag Extension with regards to farming. That is definitely not my cup of tea.
Yep.
My guess is the rotation of crops. It may be whatever you start with, how much money they have into it, that may set kind of what that minimum bid is for them, or what they feel they'll get returned from.
The reason I asked about the flood zone is, that guy, 2 out of 3 years got flooded, his crops got flooded out, so he didn't make anything off it. So $90 is generous, and $136 on the first track is very generous.
Any other questions from council? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The next item is item D, conveyance of property to rehab project, waiver, first refusal, and amendment of completion date.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you said, item D is conveyance of property to rehab development, waiver of first refusal, and amendment of the completion date. We ran into a formality regarding the deed transfer, and it requires a waiver of the city's first right of refusal. We just need documentation of the waiver in order for the transaction to move forward as intended. I understand that you are aware of the rehab development project, but I want to go through a brief history with you on the acquisition of the property and the need for the waiver. Okay. Rehab Development, Inc., the design build company investing over $12 million in rehabilitating 6 historic buildings downtown, has plans to begin the construction process in February of this year. All properties are in need of significant rehabilitation to make them productive once again. The completed project will result in 12,000 square feet of commercial ready-to-lease space and 63 market-rate residential units, successfully repurposing 68,000 square feet of non-productive space. 4 of the 6 historic properties, 200 East Walnut Street, 204 East Walnut Street, 206 East Walnut, and 106 South John, were donated by the county in 2017 to the city with the intent of actively marketing them for reinvestment to save and rehabilitate the properties. In partnership with the city, the properties were deeded to the Downtown Goldsboro Development Corporation to facilitate the marketing of the properties with an emphasis on intended use and rehabilitation timeline. To ensure the properties would be protected, a series of covenants were written into the deed by the DGDC, including right of first refusal for the city of Goldsboro to purchase the properties and a completion date of May 31st, 2020. As per the deed executed on December 12th, 2017 between the City of Goldsboro and the Downtown Goldsboro Development Corporation, the DGDC has notified the City of Goldsboro of their intent to convey the properties to WMB Landlord LLC, a subsidiary of Rehab Development, Inc. The City of Goldsboro is asked to waive its rights to the property at this time. Additionally, as the deed was written prior to the significant delay of the North Carolina Historic Tax Credits, the DGDC requests the amendment of the May 31st, 2020 deadline to match the agreement, which states, no later than the date which is 27 months following the renewal date of the North Carolina Historic Tax Credit Program, and WMB Landlord needs the properties conveyed in order to begin the work. It is recommended by motion to adopt the attached resolution accepting and authorizing the mayor to sign the waiver subject to city attorney review, approval, and based on the intent, expectations, and assurances as stated herein and intended. Any questions?
Questions? This is a formality. It's really just a
Right.
formality. We're changing that, so it's, we're protected. We're protected both ways. We're protected on the tax side. We're protected on the revenue side. So,
Thank you.
do I have any questions? If not,
Okay, the next item E is amending Chapter 32, Section 32.311 for the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. And at the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities meeting on December 19th, 2019, members requested the city manager ask council to reduce the number of members from 30 to 15 in order to have a quorum of members and more active participation. Staff recommends council consider adopting the following entitled ordinance amendment Chapter 32, Section 32.311, Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities of the Code of Ordinances, changing the membership from 30 members to 15 members.
I think the major problem is they can't get a quorum.
I was there at that meeting, and they told me about half the time they can't get a quorum. So we discussed what number would be a good number, and we thought 15. They only have to have 8 members present in order to have a quorum, so that, typically they get 8 to 10.
Questions from council? No problem.
I can move on to the next item, F. And this has to do with the advisory board and commission appointments. There are currently several vacancies on advisory boards and commissions. Citizen involvement is vital to the performance of city government. Recommendations for appointments were requested from respective boards and commissions. Applications were also solicited. The City Council met during the work session on December 16th, 2019 to review vacancies and applications received to fill the current vacancies. With these proposed appointments, 1 vacancy on the Goldsboro Municipal Golf Course Committee and 1 vacancy on the Local Firefighter Relief Fund Board of Trustees remains. It is also customary for the City of Goldsboro to express its appreciation by resolution to those members whose terms have expired, who have moved or resigned. By motion, council adopt the attached resolutions, appointing members to various advisory boards and commissions in the City of Goldsboro, and commending those individuals whose terms have expired or have moved or resigned.
And has everybody seen the resolution?
I've seen it, but I don't agree with some of the members here because some of these members were not even, we've had the board, for instance, historical board, they had recommendations, and I don't see the recommendations that they recommended, particularly for some of these members that are in this draft as you have right now. So I'd like to go with the historical board's who they recommended, opposed to us just picking somebody out of the blue.
I don't think that's what happened tonight.
I have a question. Do we discuss this now?
Yeah,
Or,
you can discuss it now, or you can move it to items requiring individual action, which we would still discuss after this, but
But that means we'll be doing it at 7 o'clock, and we've got 45 minutes to work through it right now, if you'd like to do that. It's, as we go
then we
through
can
it.
amend the draft resolution as requested by council.
And we can amend.
Yeah. I have a question, Ms. Pierce. You sit on the historical board. Do you have that email with the recommendations from the historical board? Okay, okay.
I think they recommended Terry Cottle and Crystal Stephen, if I'm saying that right, correct?
Stephen.
I know my recommendation was Crystal and Donna Stevens.
But as far as the total, when we got each, that, yes ma'am, that was your recommendation, but of all the board members submitting back all the emails, quantifying them up, it was Crystal Stephen and Terry Cottle were the top two recommendations from the historic.
Because I see Mr. Cottle there, and he has served before, but I think that there needs to be other people that have the opportunity to serve. He's served in the past. You know, you got people that, you know, they definitely want to get on the board. They definitely want to, you know, do their citizen duties. So, you know, I think that, you know, someone else needs an opportunity. That's a lot of these boards, you know, people don't get an opportunity to serve.
How long is the term on the board?
4 years. Three.
In addition to that, I think one of my major concerns was with the Commission of Community Relations and Development, because there are certain requirements that need to be met for that board. And I'm also concerned that one applicant submitted his application right before our last meeting, and he was recommended by the board. And there were people who applied way back in June, where it was actually their first choice. And this applicant, it was his second choice, and he was recommended by the board. And another applicant, it was her third choice, and she was also recommended. So I have some major concerns about how the board is recommending, and if it's meeting the requirements, which is 1/3 of their membership needs to be low to moderate income. There needs to be diversity in gender, religion, race, and I don't think that that is being met. And I also think that we should consider those applicants who it was their first choice, and not only was it their first choice, it wasn't their first time applying to be on that board. And I think the board needs to consider that.
To kind of respond to what you were saying, similar to how all of the boards did, the submissions were provided to the board at one of their meetings. They reviewed all those applications a month prior. They went through that. The applicant you're referencing, I think it was either her second or third, Ms. Amy Bauer. She was chosen so that we can have another Caucasian on the commission, because we currently only have one. You know, we try to have diversity both ways. Again, the commission reviewed all applications and made that choice by who they thought, looking at the application, who would best serve with the commission in this next term. So, I don't know where you're getting the 1/3 has to be low to moderate income. That is, I've never seen that in our bylaws, but if there's something where it's referencing when it was under planning maybe.
Would you gentlemen hold it down in the back?
So
Lonnie?
aside from that, Ms. Sampson, there were other Caucasian women applicants, and it was their first choice. So that's my only concern. It seems like those people were overlooked, and you chose people, it wasn't their first choice. So I don't know why that person would be more suitable, and it wasn't even their first choice.
Well, they also took into account with Ms. Bauer, her work in the African American communities that's currently established. So that was one of the reasons that she was chosen as the second Caucasian on our commission, as I said, to replace where we had Mr. Steve Taylor. And then Mr. Christian Demont was also recommended so that we would have more diversity, because the commission is not monopoly to just African Americans, it's diversity birthways. So we try to have a more of a balance. If you could consider that a balance, having 3 out of 11 and 1 Hispanic.
So Mr. Drummond's application was received on the 29th of November.
He had submitted, Mr. Jamon had submitted one, but they expire after a year, so we took his name off the list. And we did notify him, that if he wanted to reapply, he would need to resubmit his application. That may be a reason, but I'm not sure. All applications expire after 1 year, so we had removed him. So maybe when the board was reviewing their applications, they may still have that submitted as well.
So there is an applicant, Mr. Ferguson, if I'm not mistaken, is,
Eric Ferguson we have down as a third choice for him?
I'm using that because since we're not going with people's first choice, I was thinking of his ethnicity, it just slipped my mind. But I was thinking about diversity, he would be a great candidate if you're trying to focus solely on that. He would be an awesome candidate, even it being his third choice, even though I would much rather honor his first choice with the Planning Commission, which I thought he would be a great addition to that as well. So I just don't agree with the 2 recommendations that were submitted. I don't think they were the better choice.
And I have a problem with Christian DeMond because that wasn't his first choice either. His first choice was the Historical Commission, but he's on the Community Relations. I have someone that's in my district that was her first choice to be on Community Relations, Ms. Lancaster. And I think that, we don't have anybody from District 1 on that board. So,
Councilwoman, Ms. Amy Bauer is from District 1, so if she's appointed, she would be on that board. And I can't remember, I don't have the list in front of me.
Donna Stevenson is from District 1 as well. Donna Stevenson, and she's a Caucasian woman.
Well, I'm referencing who the committee recommended. You all at least can choose who you want, but I'm just recommending who the committee recommended.
Ms. Lancaster, she's low. She lives in the housing areas, so I think that she could probably understand the plight of people that are going through some of the struggles. So I think that she would be a good advocate to help out.
Did the council have a chance to go through all of these applications?
Yes. We went through the applications, and I'll be honest with you, some of them, I didn't know who was Caucasian or otherwise, because it's not in there. Neither is age.
It's on the applications.
Some people don't see on their applications. So what we took was what the board came to us and said that they wanted. And we can change it around any way you want to, but these people are volunteers, and instead of trying to massage everyone to get, then let's have people that are volunteers, and they'll come to the meetings rather than putting other people. And if somebody doesn't work out, then next year we'll work it out. But I think we have to go with the recommendation of the board, of each of the boards that we
I
work.
personally think that if my first choice was community relations, I'm more apt to show up for a community relations meeting than I am a historic, with that being my third choice. So when we start looking at volunteers, if I volunteer to be on the community relations as my first choice, I would show up for those meetings. Absolutely.
Well, I agree with you.
So then, to
but
me,
I'm
that's
saying
not
we gotta
accepting
go
the
with the
recommendation
boards.
of the board. We don't have to. We don't have to.
No, we don't have to, but we should just respect their input of each of the boards. That's my point.
I have a question. I'm looking at this list, I don't see any applicants that have applied from my district, from District 3. So with that being said, would it be safe to accept an applicant that may be a first choice from my neighboring district to have representation, at least for District 3? Or is that out?
No, you can-
No, that's not out of the thing. It's
'Cause
just
I don't
that we
have
probably
anybody.
need to sit around a round table and work through this whole thing again, rather than trying to work,
we could just wait to table this till next
Well,
council
why don't
meeting.
we,
where
why don't we, just vote on the ones there is no,
let's vote on the ones where there are no
like the concerns.
no concern. And that way we can narrow the field in what we're going to be discussing. How does that sound? That makes sense. Let's go through that and get it as we go through. Goldsboro Municipal Golf Course. Everybody happy with that one?
Well, you've got Jay Bauer requested his third choice, but he's also, his first choice is the planning board, so you may not want to nominate him to that unless you want him on two boards.
That's right.
We're just reappointing Ms. Gina Price on the resolution.
I didn't hear that one.
On the resolution that was submitted, it was just reappointing Gina Price. So if you're all good with that, there's still a vacancy there. But
Okay, Recreation Advisory Board, any questions?
The which one now? Goldsboro, you said Goldsboro Recreation?
Recreation Advisory Board.
Oh, which?
Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
So all I'm seeing is the Goldsboro Recreation Parks and Commission.
Do we agree on that?
Is this the one with?
This one right here.
Oh, hold on, let me look at that. 1 second, Mayor President. I lost my paper.
It's in your packet.
Or here, let me go down this. This is the easy way to do this. We'll start. I have the resolution right here.
Okay.
We'll start with Commission on Community Relations and Development.
I have a problem.
Okay, you have a problem with it.
And we'll defer that one for the next meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Goldsboro Municipal Golf Course. No problem? Historic Commission.
I have an issue with that.
Parks and Rec.
I have an issue with that one.
What's your issue on?
Where it says, I guess her name is Tiani Hennett. She,
yeah, that's an update. I guess
That's a
the
student.
student that was previously sent was improper, so this is the
Okay.
student that's been
The
recommended.
student has
Okay.
to be in that. Mayor's,
I'm good on that one then.
Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. No problem? Okay, Goldsboro Planning.
I have an issue with that one. I don't think he's the better choice for that one. I recommend Mr. Ferguson for that board.
So we're going to come back and discuss this next council meeting?
I guess we are, if we're going to come back. But what I will propose, we will vote as a council on each one as it comes in. We'll vote on each committee by motion. Goldsboro Travel and Tourism, that's not a problem. So at the next meeting, we will discuss Commission on Community Relations and Development, Historic Commission, and Goldsboro Planning.
that time is when we'll make our motions on the next meeting.
We will make a motion on the entire commission, and then we will make a motion separately on each of the people that, the council that wants to serve on those committees.
On the next.
That's right. If we're not going to take the recommendation of the commission, then we need to, as a council, appoint. And then, Ms. Collins.
For the sake of the planning commission, with us having a meeting at the end, before we come back to council, well, I guess we would have one more, you didn't mind. But just understand that the council has wanted it to be kind of spread across districts. And currently, we do not have representation from District 1. So that was the board's reasoning for kind of going with that first choice. It was District 1 because you were heavy on District 2 members on the planning commission. So you've got 1, 2 representing District 2 now. You have a District 4 representative and you have a District 5 representative. Mr. Swindell is the one that did not seek for reappointment, and he was representing District 2. I just wanted you to know the makeup of the current board when you're deciding.
So, with that said, can we take the planning commission off of that?
No, I still like to just, discuss it a little bit more.
Mr. Barnway, go back to your point you made before Ms. Collins stood up. I don't see how we cannot consider a commission's recommendation for us to council to make these appointments without their input. I think is a fallacy of the process, because we don't know these people like they know them. And that's not to say that we don't get the list of candidates, that we can investigate them, but I think that they do a more thorough research. So I'm not suggesting that we take action on anything. I'm just saying from the standpoint of not respecting the commissions and boards' recommendations is a wrong thing to do.
Well, Councilman Ham, with all due respect, I did consider their recommendation. I also did some research, and we can't assume that these boards know every applicant. I don't think that's a fair assumption. And I also did some research, and all the information that we need to go on was included in the application. So that's the only thing we really should be going on when we're making these decisions. We shouldn't go on the fact that I know him and I know her. We're done with that. We need to go on what was provided in the application, and the recommendation is considered. I considered the recommendation, but I do not agree with them.
Okay, I think you misunderstood my point. I was not saying that we should not have some say-so or concern. I'm just saying for us to disregard or to say that the commission's recommendations are not to be considered is a bad process.
Thank you.
So the pleasure of the board for the next meeting is that we consider commission on community relations, historic district commission, and the planning commission.
Can you say those one more time? Can you say those one more time?
Planning.
Do what?
I say we vote on planning tonight.
You want to do planning tonight? We can vote on planning because there's only one out of that district.
But didn't Jennifer say they have one more meeting, so it's not like we have to?
They've got a meeting coming
Their
up.
next meeting is January 26th or 7th, whichever, I'm saying that. It's the last Monday in January, so there will be a council meeting prior to their next meeting.
Okay.
So I think we should keep it as it is.
Do you want to make that as motion?
Sure.
Do I have a second? Second. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Discussion.
Yeah, discussion.
I don't see the rush. I don't see why we can't sit and look at Mr. Ferguson's application again, look at Mr. Bowers again, and then make an informed decision. I don't see why we have to rush. There's no extreme emergency. Hell, we don't have a mayor here, but we're still handling business. They're still going to be able to handle business if we don't put this person at that seat immediately. So I just say we wait. I mean, you know.
Okay, discussion. Any other discussion?
Further discussion, if we could have access to the current board members in the district, because I do agree that we should stretch it out between districts, but I would like to see that, what that looks like. I think it'll be beneficial moving forward with all the boards.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
I do. So like what I asked earlier about, since it seems I don't have any applicants in District 3 in a lot of categories, I just want to have some clarity on the neighboring district of my choice. So like you neighbor me on District 2 side, whereas Councilman Williams is my neighbor on District 1 side. Could that be a possibility, since I have lack of representation in a lot of these areas, to make a choice? And if, say, for example, we have 2 District 1 or 2 District 2 selections, could I make a choice, since I really don't have any representation in a lot of districts? So that's one of my questions, I guess. I do want some representation, and would love to sit in on that meeting that they have to see what the process is as far as selection. So.
Well, in that case, we go through all the applications again.
Well, no, just in those areas that we have questions in, those 3 is what I'm.
Okay, we have discussion. Thank you. Do we have discussion? All in favor of Councilman Aycock's motion for planning board only? All in favor? All opposed? We've got 3. Okay.
So the motion does not pass.
The motion did not pass. Okay. Let's go up and see what else we got to do today. I think that's our last item, isn't it, City Manager?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's 5:45. We will go on recess, see everybody at 7 o'clock.